control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we're covering a kids horror anthology series called Deadtime Stories. This first aired in 2012 on Nickelodeon, and it consists of 11 episodes, 10 of which were aired initially and one was aired a fair bit later on a different channel. The first one aired on November the 2nd, 2012 and it's called Grave Secrets. Sorry, did I mention this is called Deadtime Stories? On November the 12th, 2012 on Nickelodeon, and then the number 2 onwards up to 10 aired on October 2013. So there was a year's gap between the first one and the remaining ones. I presume it was a pilot, and they decided to go ahead. That kind of makes sense with the time frame. So yeah, so Grave Secrets was made sometime before the rest of them, and Grave Secrets is what I'm going to be talking about. Now, the remaining 10 aired in October, November, kind of weekly on 2013. Then the final episode didn't air until October 2014. That did not air on Nickelodeon. It was released on Vimeo for some reason. Yeah, and this is often shown on other sort of channels around the world as part of a kids programming. It is very child oriented, but it's kind of fun. And there's some clever premises to keep up the energy, but also not make it too intense for kids. I quite liked. It's got a framing device of a babysitter reading stories to young kids. And every now and then, the action breaks while she reassures the kid, do you want to hear what happened next? There's those kinds of scenes, which makes it a little less intense. I think it's quite a good idea, but it frames it quite well. And it's kind of interesting. And I think all the stories are set around a certain neighbourhood. There's certainly recurring characters, apparently, throughout. So it feels like it's very Amblin, Steven Spielberg, suburban America. Certainly was the setting for the first one, and I've reading through some of the synopses of the remaining episodes. It looks about the same. So the first episode is called Grave Secrets. It involves a group of kids, boys and girls, kind of playing, but they something mysterious happens. They dig up an old doll, and they also kind of see things that look weird. Basically, there's a ghost of a little girl who wants her doll back, and the doll apparently was stolen from this ghost when she was alive, and she just wants to have the doll back so she can rest. There's also a setup that they've got a neighbour they call Barnsey, who's this older lady who kind of harangues them. Get off my lawn! What are you doing? Look at my mail! Things like that. And they're all kind of scared of her, and they call her Barnsey. She's played by Diane Ladd. Diane Ladd, great actress, really good in things like Chinatown, Wild at Heart, things like that. But she plays Barnsey. Now, it has to be said, it's overplayed fairly melodramatically, but this is a kids show, so it kind of is understandable. There's music throughout, sort of music to keep up the tension and energy. Most of it's shot handhelds, again keeping up the energy, and it's fairly rapid cutting as well. So all of these things feed into keeping it high energy. These are only 22 minutes; they're not very long, and they crack along at a fair pace. Essentially, what we do find out is the little girl died when a neighbour, not a friend, but another little girl stole one of her dolls and ran out of the garden. She chased her, and then she got hit by a car. That's the kind of premise. So, where's this doll now? Why was it buried in the garden? And so on. Eventually, I'm going to spoil this. I'm afraid. Eventually, we find out that she keeps talking about Emily stealing her doll. And various, certainly younger kids in the group see the little girl ghost and interact with it, but it kind of just disappears on a wisp once it's said what it needs to. And all she says is, "I want my baby." And this "I want my baby" keeps getting written in places in a fogged up mirror. When a little girl's having a shower, and "I want my baby," written on the sand on the floor. "I want my baby," in the dirt. And so on. And we see Barnsley's a very suspicious character. Basically, it turns out it's Barnsley. Barnsley is this Emily. When she was a little girl, she tried to steal this doll, causing the original little girl, I think was called Anna, to get hit in it by a car and die. And she's lived with this guilt, and that's what's made her kind of a shut-in, kind of angry neighbour type. And she feels super guilty. But anyway, it all gets resolved. The little girl gets her doll back. Barnsley sort of plays it like, "I've lived with this guilt all my life," and all this kind of stuff. But there's no consequences from this other than the little girl kind of forgives her before she goes, and that is a big weight off her mind. And she becomes like a good friend to the children from that point on. We see her celebrating Halloween with them, but there is a slight twist in the tale in that the Halloween celebration, there's a little girl who looks just like Anna, and it isn't her, but it makes the kids kind of jump. And yeah, like I say, there's this framing device of a babysitter played by Jennifer Stone. Apparently is in it every episode reading to these kids. And there's some intriguing sounding ones, even though it's a kid show. Some intriguing sound. The very last one, which was the one that wasn't aired, maybe it was a bit too intense. Sounds most intriguing, which is Nancy Patinsky, a character who is kind of a side character in some of the episodes, becomes a main character in the last one. So they go to babysit, but they find that the previous owner haunts the house, and he was called Giggles the Killer Clown. So it's a scary clown episode. There's other ones involving things like magic shops, goblins, and dolls coming to life, and things like that. So yes, it's okay. It's a kid show, right? But it was fine. I thought it was reasonably high energy. It only went for one season, so there was no interest in continuing it. Maybe its ratings weren't great, but it was fun. There's a few comedy sections in this one. For example, there's one point one of the kids is trying to use gestures to communicate something to the other kids, but his gestures are completely bonkers. Do not mean anything. And it's kind of funny. They're trying to work out what, and he keeps getting exasperated and doing completely different gestures to explain his original gestures, and none of it makes sense. That kind of made me chuckle a bit. But yeah, it's okay. It's kind of an update of Tales from the Crypt for kids. Something like that, Tales from the Dark Side for kids, that kind of thing. Tales of the Crypt Keeper, I think, is the one I'm trying to think of. That's the Tales from the Crypt that's for kids. Yes, it's kind of got a similar vibe, and I quite liked it. It was okay, yeah. Interestingly, I would have bet it was made in the 90s if I hadn't seen the date. It was 2012, 13, but it had a kind of 90s feel. But yeah, it was fine. Okay, I'm going to wind it up there. Before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
We're not.
We now return control of your television set to you.
Until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to